What is this? Passionate soldier reveals what he saw in Vietnam.
Well, when I got to Vietnam, I I literally expected to be welcomed with open arms by
I went into war expecting all this and that. Isn't war? I mean, what do they tell us war is? If they say, "Well, this is the only way to what somehow protect and just smash." So it's not that you have expectations or anything. Should it? Is it? Is that what going to war means? Filled with expectations. Shouldn't the only expectation be to somehow have victory? What are you saying?
the people of Vietnam. I had in my head the black and white newsreels I had seen on the Walter Cronkite 20th Century show of the American troops rolling through villages in France and being showered with wine and flowers and kisses.
So he's talking about World War II and all this footage that he was bombarded with. Wow, who knew that that would be an allurement of why to even join the military, for example, or why to even put yourself in a situation where you're now in the front lines and you're like, wow, amazing. But who knew that that would be part of the uh, grease on the wheels, so to speak, so that you would just slide and grease over it like you just did, and all of a sudden be in it and like, oh, life just happened to me. I just all of a sudden was at war. Wow.
Um, and as we were driving down, a guy from the battalion I was assigned to picked me up in a Jeep at Da Nang, and we had to drive the 20 miles to where my battalion was located, and I really was disappointed that there weren't people standing along the road waiting.
I was really disappointed. I was really disappointed. You know, I expected to be embraced and loved for coming and killing and saving people. Yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted to make out with people on the street because that's what I saw. So of course, World War II and World War One. Well, people can smash their bash all day long, even a lifetime. This is what history. I've spent so many. What do you say? I mean, it's it changed the world, and you can see the outcome of how it did. So what the result is yes, an empire built on the crash and the smashing that happened. And you say, oh, well, it was inevitable to keep safe. What safe security? Well, no. What is going on? If you could imagine, somebody wanting to, you know, fully implement an image, you could call it conquest. No, it's a way it changed the there was an overt judgment on man against man, just man turning on himself, all for an attempt of at a glorious something empire, one world government, one world religion, whatever you want to call it, just a paradigm of just one bashhood. And who knew that it was? You could call it globalism, this capitalism, this. cor- It's all the same bash, smash, the same mechanism for the same outcome: defilement, destruction, and theft of life. Yes.
Waving to me and offering me flowers and things. I really expected to be greeted as with open arms as a liberator, and it was as though I was invisible, as though I didn't exist. Um, and that was a little perplexing.
Who knew that? What I thought I was worth and value and fighting for was just an illusion.
Moreover, they looked funny and they acted funny. I mean, just riding along in this Jeep the first day I got there.
They look funny.
They
They
lived in
acted
little
funny.
straw huts and they had animals in their backyards, and They weren't like us. They smelled bad. The whole country smelled bad. You could smell it. It hurt the nose.
It hurt the nose. Oh. So what do you tell your child when he's being picky at the dinner table, and it's something that you probably took pride in making, and then it says, "Oh, it smells yucky." Is that what's going on here? What's going on? Because somehow, say, you could just maybe say a simple way of life, that, whatever, somehow it just looked funny, and just they behave funny, and they smell funny. It just was assaulted the nose, because to him it's relentlessly showering and just puts, you know spraying cologne on him 24/7. Somehow just having a sense of hygiene, cleanliness is God. He think it's just by being clean, he's more godly. Like he it makes him right, because he worships himself so much. He relentlessly cleans himself, day in, day out. That's what he believes. What is the purpose? Do you see? Or do you see the little furniture that you can go out and rearrange and just say, yes, you can have this too. Everyone should have it. Equal, 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 equal. Equity Yahtzee? Wanna play some equity Yahtzee? Yes!
Um, and that was disturbing. And then I was there for about, on the third day I was there, this guy who had picked me up in the Jeep, a corporal who I was ultimately going to replace, he and I were in the battalion intelligence section. We were sent down to the tractor park, the amphibious.
So this guy was part of the intelligence sector, yet this was all just confusing to him. So he was in intelligence, and somehow this is all just confusing. It's baffling him. It's overwhelming him. He's like, what's going on? What? They smell funny, and they just look funny. What is he saying?
Tractor park to meet a bunch of detainees. It was our responsibility to take care of prisoners, and detainees were a classification of civilians. They were not combatants. They could be detained for questioning, which is why they were called
Oh, so he just doesn't know how to say it. He just like, well, we could just see somebody suspicious and just detain them. He won't say that. He just says, he's just stumbling. He even had to just wipe his nose or wipe his stash that he hides something in for sure. But of course, it's everything. What is what of this? This is person number one of 1,300,000 and something that he has them stashed somewhere, and then he just picks whatever one.
detainees. Um, and Jimmy and I went down there to the track park, and two tractors came in. They had a whole bunch of Vietnamese up on top. High, flat-topped vehicles, about 8 or 9 feet tall. And as the tracks wheeled into the park, the Marines up on top immediately began hurling these people off. They were bound hand and foot, so that they had no way of breaking their fall.
So just tossing them.
And they were old men, women, children, no young men. And I couldn't believe these guys were treating these people this way. And I turned to Jimmy and said, I grabbed him by the arm and said, what are those guys doing? We're supposed to be helping these people. And Jimmy turned to me and he looked at my hands on his arm. I sort of took them off, and he said, Earhart, you better keep your mouth shut until you know what's going on around here. And I think it was at that point.
Whoa, who knew that at that point he was like, oh, I've been lied to. But lied to about that or this or that? No, everything. You worship the light, and that's why you were led into that. And of course, the light will show, oh well, you were just deceived about that one thing, but then just come to see the other ways. No, there's one way.
Point that I realized things were not quite what I was expecting. It went downhill from there. And again, I can't even begin to explain in the space of time that you have all of the things that went into it, but I began to understand, it became obvious that the enemy was the very people in these villages around us, and we were in a very heavily populated area at that time.
Oh, that's what the enemy, that's what he believed was the swarm. When the swarm was that which even sold him into being a soldier or intelligence or whatever it is he thinks he is. No, it's just swarm believers are then inflicting the shadow upon as far as the reach of his grasp.
Time. They were the enemy, or at least the enemy was out there somewhere, and we couldn't tell one from another.
And that's why you had to identify as like, my country, my American, I'm fighting for some American freedom here, yes. All while just bashing yourself into deceit.
And day after day, our patrols went out, and we ran into snipers and mines, and snipers and mines, and snipers and mines.
Wow, who knew it was relentless? Who knew? Who knew? Who knew you believed in suffering and dying? Who knew? Who knew that you could just say, well, you go for the lesser of evils and just, do your best. Wow. And you call that living. Wow.
I saw 4 armed enemy soldiers the first 8 months I was in Vietnam. And yet our battalion during that same period of time sustained 75 mining and sniping incidents per month.
Wow, yes. Look at me. Okay, 33rd degree victim or somehow proud. He's proud. Wow, he's like, it was relentless, man. They were just coming out from nowhere. We had no idea. Just relentless. Somehow it just made it.
Over half of them resulting in casualties. This is for a unit of about 1,000 men. But there was no one to fight back at. And you begin to think...
Oh, you begin to think... If all these people lived in the wood, just had animals in their house and stuff, how did they all become marksmen? Just snipers, relentless snipers, and military tactics upon military tactics. It couldn't possibly be that it was maybe even your own American troops shooting at you. Maybe. Who knew? Maybe it couldn't be that it was some other military entity that was just, you were fighting some enemy that didn't exist. And that's why you couldn't find them. And you just tortured and relentlessly abused the people that were just apparently the enemy swarming you. What are you talking about?
These people are the enemy. They're all the enemy.
So, of course, he's going to this is probably where he just turns and saying, that's why we just turned out and slashed everything we saw.
And then you go through villages and, you get sniped at, and so you call an airstrike in on the village, and the whole...
Yeah, somebody shot at us, and then just burn it all, it's the swarm, just kill the swarm. What is he saying?
Village goes up, or you go through a place and you search it, and you burn houses and blow them up. The common perception, the notion I had when I was in high school was that the Viet Cong terrorized the Vietnamese population, forced...
Well, who knew that that's how you evict some sort of emotion, some sort of virtuous incitement, and wow, yeah, of course. Oh, how dare people do that? Yes, let's go and smash them! And somehow liberate the people that were there. What's going on? What's going on? So he learned this in high school. So what's going on?
Them to fight against the Americans on pain of death. What I began to understand in Vietnam was that they didn't need to do things like that. All they had to do was let a Marine patrol go through a village, and whatever was left of that village, they had all the recruits that they needed. I began to understand why the Vietnamese didn't greet me with open arms, why they in fact hated me. But of course that didn't change the fact that my friends were getting killed and injured every day,
So I just use that as for hate to just slash and bash.
and the only place that you could focus your own anger and fear was on those civilians who were there.
Wow, who knew Bash created Bash?
And so it was this self-perpetuating
Oh, he
mechanism. The
couldn't
longer
wait.
that
He
we
couldn't
stayed in
wait.
Vietnam, the more Viet Cong there were, because we created them, we produced them.
Yeah, I mean, who knew that just showing up and smashing would just create some sort of response? Wow. Of course, because you believe every action has its equal and opposite reaction. All this what Bash, what it is, all these theories and notions of life. And yes, who knew? Who knew? So you just have to go out and test it, right? And just bash, right? Or what is it that you're actually doing? Creating behaviors that you write into history as just being, oh, this is man.
Um, None of that distilled itself into the clear kind of expression that I'm presenting now. Um, what I began to understand within days, and which became patently clear within months, was that what was going on here was not what I had been told. What was going on here was nuts.
Again, he he's just stating the obvious. You were lied to. Wow. Okay, so what? So that was over here, but now what? You were lied to, and then you're just gonna go out and kill anyway, right?
And I wanted to get out. I knew if I were still alive on March the 5th, 1968, they'd stick me on an airplane in Da Nang. We used to call it the Freedom Bird. And I could fly away and forget the whole thing. Turned out not to be quite so easy to forget it, but that was the notion. And certainly for my last 8, 9 months in Vietnam, I ceased to think. I quite literally ceased to think about why
About why, who, I just wanted to survive. Yeah.
I was there or what I was doing. The sole purpose for my being in Vietnam at that point was to stay alive until I could get out.
Wow. Who knew? He could not wait to say it. He could not wait. And this is the hero. This is the American dream. Do as thou wilt, and you come out like the phoenix.
And the reason for that is that, the kinds of questions that began to present themselves were just, the questions themselves were ugly. And I didn't want to know the answers. It's like banging on a door. You knock on
Wow, who knew it was just all trauma and split you and just fracturing you and fragmenting you and fractal, 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 Freegal rock. Yay!
a door, and the door opens slightly, and behind that door it's dark, and there's lack.
Wow, the abyss. Okay, so, I mean, this is just obvious abyss. And who knew that war was just a just open sore to the abyss, an open wound, the open source, the open what, just bloodbath. But of course, it's the ultimate sacrifice, the ritual of man's authority over man, and the belief in it. And then you play little politics and little things and little things and little polls and little temperature checks, all while defiling, doing as I will, then calling it happiness, and fulfilling your children with a false sense of love, relentlessly exposing them to then just fill themselves with the false love that the world provides. And so they think, oh, yes, it loves me back, yes, and I love it so much, yes.
Loud noises coming, like there's wild animals in there or something, and you peer into the darkness and you can't see what's there, but you can hear all this ugly stuff. You want to step into that room? No way. You just sort of back out quietly, pull the door shut behind you, and walk away from it.
And that's when you become completely shattered, a reckless abandon, split. Okay? When you just vacate, you check out, you say, Not my problem. I'm just gonna do it anyway because I know that I'm just in it for myself and I just need to survive and just smash.
And that's what was going on. The questions themselves were too ugly to even ask, let alone try to deal with the answers.
Right, because it's just following orders, right? No one dared question what is being done. It's because you're following some, relative truth based on some relative morality because obviously you think you're on the winning side and some other side isn't and you have to just smash. Well, what winning side? For what? Nothing protects you from the swarm other than the truth. Seek refuge in the truth. Walk in its path, in the way of truth, and the life everlasting is the purpose. Do you see? Or do you see the carnage and how you can go out there and sacrifice yourself in the ritual as dust to dust and sacrifice yourself and giving your life to somehow changing the ways of the world, which were it's it's like saying you want to just die. Open yourself to the swarm and the ways that the swarm deceive it, and to thinking there's a winning side of the world in man's image. No. The only thing that man gains and wins at in his own image in the life that he's creating a future for, supposedly, is winning and completely thieving the life he had for a dream, for a fantasy of rising like the phoenix from the ashes into some sort of blissful galactic family where he can do as I will and with no consequences. What is he talking about?
Now, part of what was going on is that I could not have made sense of what I was seeing and doing in Vietnam because I did not have a full deck of cards.
Oh, so poor little me. I was ignorant. Again, 33rd degree victim here. Okay? What is going on? Everyone can see, but they can't accept and say, wow, I was so wrong. What am I doing? And doing whatever it takes to stand in that truth and not, I mean, it's relentless. Why fear it? Because otherwise, continue fearing and suffering and die. Either way, or stand in the truth and yes, the flesh will perish, but what? The life is what it's all about. The truth, the way, and the love of the Father, yes. Not some bash image you have to relentlessly protect yourself to survive. What are you talking about? The only survival is for the survival of the ways of the world, which bash any notion of standing in truth. Because it's too much of a beacon for others to see. To see what? Truth. But no, it doesn't matter.
I needed to have an understanding of the political and historical realities that brought us to Vietnam before I could make sense of what I was seeing.
Oh, so you needed historical proof, right? That's it. It couldn't be that you just thought, oh, killing, murdering, and slaying, and just showing up and burning villages is somehow still right. Well, even if you think you know the difference between right and wrong, what gives you the right to just say, well, I think this right, but they don't think it's right, so we're fighting over it. So what's going on? Exactly. A total split bash way of living based on a worship of light that just started from light and nothing, but it just was light, and it's just been like that forever. And there is a destiny, and we have it. We're just a marble, just of dust, and just nowhere. And there's the sun that blasts, and just other suns, and wow, just bash. What? Who knew that bash would just bash you and thieve away the only true promise, life everlasting, which we have, a mortal snapshot of it So what do we see? And what do we know? Do we know the love of the Father, or do we reject it and pursue a knowledge that will somehow empower us into injecting ourselves with some whatever love we want to create in our image?
I began to acquire the other cards in the deck during the 3 years or so after I got back from Vietnam. But wow,
Okay, you were in intelligence, buddy. Again, what was even if you were a just cannon fodder, you everyone can see, and it's only terror that maintains you imprisoned to standing in life, in truth, and in the way. And who cares if they blow your brains out or whatever, put you in a camp for treason or whatever. Man will always punish man for not being obedient to his authority. Authority based on what? On what grounds? Because though they may wordsmith and just cater with enchantments of speak, what is the actual day in day out experience or just life that you say you're it's just worth fighting for relentlessly? Defilement.
while I was there, nothing made sense because I kept trying to, play this game with 27 cards instead of 52 cards, and it kept not coming out right.
Oh, because it's all about numbers, right, buddy? Right? It's just I was just short. I was just short. I was just dealt the wrong hand.
And I didn't know why. All I knew was that it was nuts. I mean, it became.
Who knows? That's exactly what a child sees when when he's so-called developing and supposedly being nurtured, right, by the parent. He's like, man, this is nuts. I know life and I am life, but I'm being told and taught a different thing and say what, and then guess what? Rebellion. Yes, because the child sees the hypocrisy and the nuttiness of it all, yet is deceived into believing in themselves and in that they can create whatever they want. Well, that was a lie that their parents believed, and look at where it got them. Just dissatisfied and just filled with lust for themselves and their aspirations and their fulfillment in what they call their life. What a shame.
It became clear within 3 or 4 months that my reasons for being in Vietnam were not clear. I mean,
Well, who knew you were just so, oblivious, just confounded, just completely refracted and overdone, hard boiled and served on a flat top of a blistering cinder.
notion of defending the people against these invaders from North Vietnam, the people hated me. The Vietnamese people hated me. And it was that was perfectly clear. I mean, people didn't say good morning to you. People didn't.
So anybody who doesn't say good morning to you hates you. Yes, they hate you. What is this? That's why he's laughing. I mean, is this guy has to be an actor or something because all they're pushing is, well, just the darkness led me to this, and it was all a lie. So guys, watch out for the lie, but you don't know what the lie is. So I mean, good luck. That's why he's laughing.
People hated me. I know that other people's experience.
And of course, it's all about having people love you, right? Wow. Who knew that when people have love of the Father, behave differently in a way that doesn't ever think that defilement is justified for some ends, for some result, for some outcome that you have bashed in your mind. So going to fight some more for some outcome that bashes you and just bashed others in return. What somehow? Well, I was just figuring it out with the shorthand I was dealt, and well, just 2 plus 2 is 5, and just slashed and murdered a bunch of people. Yep, because they murdered my friends, so I just took it out on the civilians. It was amazing.
Some other people's experience was different, but In my own experience, the Vietnamese people hated me, and I gave them every
And I gave them every reason.
reason to hate me. I
Wow.
beat them. I sometimes killed them. I destroyed.
Exactly. Just the fury. And who knew that's exactly right now the wrath of the so-called children of the future? They feel so void of love that they're killing themselves left and right. So void in their shattered, sense of identity and place and belonging, and just void of love. And so the minute that they think that whatever love that is supposedly dished out there and they can dish out themselves, is somehow withheld from them, wow, you better believe they're gonna just become the fury and just murder sometimes and just beat and kick in the face.
Destroyed their houses, I destroyed their crops, I destroyed their fields, I destroyed their culture. Why in the hell should those people like me? And I could see that I was doing that.
And that's exactly what the mentality is. Who gives a damn what people think? I'm just gonna go out and smash and create my own image of success because I'm so strong and empowered, and I see the love of my desire rockets, and I can bat the negative thoughts left and right and hit home runs all day. Well, as long as I can sit down and get hemorrhoids to some soothing music. Yes.
And I could see that nothing we were doing was having any impact on the war itself. You know, the funny thing about Vietnam is that I was getting Time magazine every week.
And who knew that was the purpose of it all? For you to just unwrath the fury. And who gives a damn? Because overall, the result, the wanted result, is just the same: shatter. Shatter and rebuilding in what? Man's image. Yes, you guessed it. So it just doesn't even matter what the soldier thinks. It just, as long as he just fights for himself and fights for his platoon and his family of little tin soldiers, and just fodder and just stumble and just crash and become something they didn't know they could be capable of and overcome and murder. All because they think they're on the winning side. Winning side of what? Exactly, further writing and creating of man's image. And it doesn't give a damn. So just as you didn't give a damn, guess what? It's the same bashwood that goes all the way into the oblivious spiraling of abyss light into, you guessed it, nowhere. The pavement to space that you want to relentlessly drive into hyperspeed into while smashing at the same time.
It came in the mail. I could read about my war even as I sat in the middle of it. And I would read about what Lyndon Johnson would say and what McNamara would say and what Rusk would say. And I could look around and see that, I don't know what war they're talking about, but that's not what.
Exactly. So this guy is just saying what everybody lives day in day out. Just saying, but actually it's the upside down. It's the inverse now. You say, well, of course, what they're saying is, how could they be a lie? Because what I see is just soothing comfort and just how I want to keep it that way and just open my arms to the world and say kumbaya. Yes. So it's just a further bash. That was a step necessary for a further grasp on the bashwood to assure its place in the theft of life. Yes.
What's going on here. We actually had an incident happen where one of our line companies stumbled upon a fairly large cache of Viet Cong weapons and ammunition.
Weapons of mass
And I
destruction.
read in the Stars and Stripes, the daily newspaper that we received, this little action actually made it into the papers, and we read that we had set the Viet Cong effort back by at least 4 months in our area. Within a week of that article appearing in the paper, within 10 days of the incident itself, the bridge 150 meters in front of our battalion compound was dropped by Viet Cong sappers. An Amtrak coming in from
Well, who knew that despite confiscating those weapons that you say was a little incident that was made into some big thing, overseas, to what the masses were told, and whatever, didn't do anything because they blew up this and put out that, they defeated that town, this, wow, it couldn't be that they're being supplied relentlessly, and who cares? The money funds both sides, and who gives a damn, right? But this guy's just so confused. What is going on? Intelligence again. Wow.
The horseshoe area from one of the line companies hit a 50-pound box mine. Several men were killed. A bunch more were wounded. A patrol out at Fukrock Bridge was ambushed. Several people were killed. Several people were wounded. I mean, nobody told the Viet Cong that they'd been set back for 4 months. And yet this is what you're reading in the
Just bash.
newspapers. This is what you're being told back in the United States. I could
So again, this is just, if anybody's saying, "Wow, this is wrong," immediately they become angry at the media or the press. Oh, the propaganda or the agenda of some policies or politics. But that's where it ends. No, it doesn't go into bashhood, because ultimately you all believe in all of that and what you call life, as it day in day out. That it's absolute. It's just, without it, you have nothing. You are nothing. And somehow that's what you need to latch onto and seek and pursue, is false love and false promise of some hope.
could see that the war went on day after day after day, interminably, at the same pace, no matter what we did.
It's a spiritual battle, dummy.
I'm wasting your film.
Oh, exactly, because you're pointing to obvious, but all the while trying to convince whoever's seeing this to see it in a particular way that will just fit into their image of, I'm gonna be so more empowered to fight for my organization's, purpose, and this for all human rights. Yes, nobody needs to go in there and burn all the villages. Bashed, shattered by the light.
When I left Vietnam, I was at the time I was in the midst of the battle for Hue City during Tet, 1968, February '68, and I'd been up in the city for 2.5, 3 weeks, and I knew that my day was coming, but I wasn't sure when. And at that point, we weren't thinking about things like that.
Exactly. They
Um,
were just thinking about murdering and getting back at the Viet Cong, at Charlie, and whatever bash they made up to just murder and justify the wrath, the fury, just to come home. Bring my boys home. What is he saying? What is he saying? Who knew that when confronted with just bash, you totally just rely on emotions and any attachment of a false love and brotherhood and family come immediately the only thing you cling on to, because otherwise you're just shattered, because you have no bearing of what life, love, the way, truth are, any of it, the one purpose for you to see. But no, you see just decimation and just defilement, and therefore you justify it to just go on just relentlessly friction.
and we were in the middle of a low-key firefight. We were exchanging fire with some guys across the street from us out along the eastern,
Just some guys, just crossfire, just some guys.
uh, the northeast section of Hue City. Um, what was left of my unit, the scouts, about 6 of us, and a jeep comes hauling up the street along the river and whips into this little compound where we were and says, "Earhart, your orders are in. Let's go." It was the lieutenant, my boss, and I stood. Well, I didn't exactly stand up, but I immediately began to strip off my gear and distribute it to the other guys who were there, and said, "So long, see you back in the world." Got on a jeep. Last thing I saw of those guys, they were laying down covering fire for us. We burned our way back down the street. There was a chopper sitting on the LZ. I got on a bird. Was up 3,000 feet above Hue City 10 minutes after I knew I was on my way out. And
Whoa, who knew it was that easy to get out? Who knew? But no, you had to rely on somebody taking you out, right? Because you couldn't just go out yourself, right? Because you're so afraid. But you just left them. You just didn't go down. They're like, "Yep, see you later. Whoever make it, see you in the world." because the world wasn't what you were living, right? That was just some nightmare, right? Wow, who knew the ways of the world was suffering and dying? But no, you wanted to go suffer and die back when where it was more comfortable and just you could have a beer and chill and just it doesn't matter that there's that still smashing and bashing going on. It doesn't matter as long as that this guy was just I knew I was gone. Ooh.
Went through some processing. They yanked me out early because one of my older brothers by this time had arrived in Vietnam, and they arranged for me to spend a couple of days with him. Um, and I got back. When I got back in early March, came in at night, went through more processing, a place called Treasure Island in San Francisco Bay.
Wow, processing at Treasure Island, reintroduction programming, re-education, just smashing.
And then I was free to go, and still had time in the Marines. I had a month's leave basically before I had to report to another duty station in North Carolina, and I got a taxi, and there I was, my first view of the United States, and I could hardly wait, and it was absolute impenetrable fog. We came across the Oakland Bay Bridge.
Exactly, just a haze. I saw the world, and it was just a haze.
Couldn't see 10 feet. Couldn't see anything.
It's laughing. He's laughing. He knows what he's saying.
Um, got to the airport. There was part of what affected my coming back. I was happy to be alive. I was excited, but at the same time, I was very ambivalent. I was afraid, partly because I had a girlfriend when I went over there, and in September, 8 months
You
after.
wanted to make sure she was still around, and I would love you despite you being so just tormented. What's going
After I
on?
was there, I got a Dear John letter from her, and I kept hoping that I'd be able to fix this up once I got back. And I did not know what kind. And that woman, that girl, had become the focus of my life while I was in Vietnam. She had ceased to be a real.
Exactly. Any attachment to that false love, you sweetly would worship, right? Because without that love, you have nothing, right? Wow, what shame.
Person. She'd become this icon. And then, of course, she had sort of, said, take a hike. But you can't just let go of a vision like that, of the thing that has kept you.
Oh, who knew that it's the hardest thing to give up? The image you create relentlessly for yourself of what it is that you think you're living. Who knew? And of course, he's just say, "Oh, it was just the image of the woman that I had. No, not everything else. No. Everything else is just science and it's just fact. It's just so real, right? Smash. It's your image and how you're just relentlessly abusing it and yourself and others. Wow.
Going. So I was scared about all of that. I didn't know what I was going to find when I finally got back to the East Coast.
Wow, who gives a damn? Just further revealing of just the relentless. It's Groundhog Day. I mean, call it Vietnam War, call it the Iraq War, some war, this war, World War III. This it's a war of the ages. It's a spiritual war, and there will be a generation where the truth is undeniable. And who knew you're gonna be made to choose a physical side of who the enemy you think it is? When the enemy was there relentlessly in front of you the whole time. The swarm. You just didn't see it. You succumbed to the light, smashed and believed it. And now you're gonna smash into the light relentlessly, spiraling into the abyss because you're fighting against something that you guessed it shapeshifts and deceiveth for the peril of stealing the only thing that is true life everlasting.